Hi, welcome. My name is Marv Curtis, and I'm happy to have you on board. I specialize in helping people who are in toxic or highly controlling relationships and how to regain yourself and find peace and understanding again. In the beginning, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what causes the trauma bond. And then if one of you wants to volunteer, I'll do a demonstration on how we release the trauma bond. So you might be thinking about whether that's something you'd like to do. So the trauma bond is actually a function of your nervous system. And we frequently call a trauma bond a love addiction. And that's because in the case of being in a survival mode, which is fight, flight, and freeze, your body gives off hormones to help you do that, like cortisol and adrenaline. And that gives you the energy and the power to get away or to fight back or whatever you need to do. But when that has passed, it gives you a dose of dopamine to get you back to normal. And what happens in this kind of a relationship is you become addicted to the dopamine that comes as a release and a relief when things go back to normal. So if your partner's mean to you, you get the cortisol and the adrenaline. And when they give you just a little bit of kindness afterwards, that's when your brain releases that dopamine. And that's the part that we mistake for love frequently, when it's really an addiction to this really powerful neurochemical that we have in our body. And that up and down, back and forth, I love you, I don't love you, I want you, don't want you, is what causes this attachment that you have that we call a trauma bond. So when we think my nervous system thinks emotional connection is dangerous, this back and forth pattern is not a logical process. It's what's going on in your nervous system. But what happens is a part of you becomes very protective about you. And when you're in a situation that you have, you're probably highly sensitive as it is, when you feel other people's strong emotions or you connect with your partner strongly, your brain also tells you this is dangerous. And so you might go into this survival mode, even just thinking about him. And that's a problem. So this comes from previous experiences. So let's imagine that in your childhood, you had an unpredictable caregiver. That on, off, not knowing whether you're safe or not, is something that creates this pattern that you become accustomed to. If you're ignored or neglected, if you're constantly criticized, if you're being left alone or you're a parentified child, or if you're manipulated as a child, your nervous system is constantly going from survival mode to recovery, survival mode to recovery, back and forth and back and forth. And you begin to do two things. You begin to realize maybe that's the way life works, but it also feels really dangerous. And so your brain, to protect you, causes you to attach to them. That's what safety is. So if you're in that situation, let's say as a child, or this could have happened in a subsequent relationship or in the relationship you're in now, if you feel that in order to stay safe, you have to stay close to someone who's hurting you, your brain makes this choice. I will stay connected, even if this hurts, because it's more dangerous to lose this person. And that's why sometimes you stay with people even after you know this isn't good. You got to get away. And so your brain connects all of this. When you feel stressed, this comes on. When you have a case of fear for whatever, it comes on. So you're in this hyper alert, always watching kind of state, and you chase after that kind of love because it's familiar. And you're hoping that you're going to get that release of dopamine at some point. The other part of that is, interestingly enough, the opposite doesn't feel safe. So what's really driving you is what's familiar. So if at some point in your life, especially if this happened when you were a child, you had to attach to somebody who didn't feel safe because it seemed like the best option, then that becomes familiar. And you may think, well, that's how life works, or that's what love is. What that also means is that when you're with someone who truly is safe, they may just seem too boring. and you don't want them. And so you end up picking the wrong kind of person over and over again. That's just a pattern that your nervous system eventually learns how to develop. So a lot of people will say, but I've worked on all this, I've worked on my past, I've talked to a therapist, I've gone to a counselor, we've talked about this over and over and over again. And you end up making lots of lists. You try thinking your way out. You block your partner. You promise yourself that you're not going to go back. And you wonder, why is this still happening? And the answer is, this is not a logical problem. You can't solve this by thinking it through or just talking about it, because this lives in your nervous system. So I like to think you've got three brains. You've got the one in your head. You've got an emotional one in your heart. And then you've got a really instinctual, almost survival brain in your gut. And that part is the one that actually decides whether you're safe or not, even though it may be wrong. It goes back to earlier experiences. And that's why it's so hard to stop, is because this brain is not running the show. All right. So to truly break a trauma bond, we have to work with your nervous system, not just your brain or even just your heart. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate today. I'm going to teach your body how to do something new. So you don't have to go into all the details or relive anything. But if one of you wants to volunteer, I will walk you through this process. And our goal here is to pay attention to the feelings and sensations in your body, because we're trying to retrain or re-educate your nervous system. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's what you might notice as we do this. I'm hoping one of you will volunteer. You might notice as we go through this that your breathing slows down and your chest may relax a little bit. You may feel a little bit lighter at the end. You might feel like you don't care as much about the problem that you're experiencing. And that means that this survival part of your brain that usually comes down in your gut is starting to calm down. So as we go through this demonstration with one of you, there's nothing right or wrong. You can't make a mistake. You just need to follow my voice. There's nothing you need to believe in. This isn't that kind of a thing. We're really just going to calm your nervous system down and teach your nervous system or your body that you can feel safe and still connect with someone else. Okay, before we go on to a demonstration with hopefully a volunteer, anybody have any questions?